The morning was calm, almost deceptively so, with the sun spilling golden light across our quiet suburban street. I was in the kitchen brewing coffee when I glanced out the window and saw my daughter Lily laughing softly as she played with Daisy, our golden retriever, in the front yard. At just 10 years old, Lily had already endured more pain than most people experience in a lifetime. Born with cerebral palsy, she relied on her wheelchair to get around and struggled with her balance even during short moments standing. But she never let her disability dim her spirit. Her laughter was bright and pure, the kind of sound that made you forget the weight of the world until it was silenced in an instant. The sharp crack of a gunshot shattered the air, and Daisy bolted behind Lily's wheelchair, barking furiously. My heart stopped. I dropped the coffee mug, sending porcelain shards across the tile, and sprinted to the front door. What I saw made my blood run cold. Across the street stood Karen Wilkins, the HOA president, clutching a revolver in her perfectly manicured hands. Her face was twisted into an ugly sneer, her fingers still resting near the trigger. Smoke curled lazily from the barrel. "Karen, what the hell are you doing?" I screamed, my voice hoarse with panic. "That mutt of yours has been digging in the community garden again," she snapped back, her voice dripping with venom. I fired a warning shot, but I wasn't looking at her anymore. My eyes were locked on Lily, lying on the grass with blood seeping through her pink leggings. Her wheelchair had tipped over, and her fragile body trembled as she whimpered, clutching her knee. "Mama, it hurts," she whispered, her face pale. Rage and terror surged through me in equal measure. I raced to Lily, dropping to my knees and cradling her in my arms as tears burned my eyes. "You've gone too far this time, Karen," I shouted, my voice shaking. "You could have killed her." Karen smirked, her cold eyes glinting in the sunlight. "Maybe you should have kept your crippled brat off the lawn." I froze. The weight of her words hit me like another bullet. Shaking, I pulled out my phone with one hand, dialing 911 as I pressed my other hand against Lily's bleeding knee. "Stay with me, baby," I whispered. "Help's on the way." Karen watched us with that same smug grin as sirens wailed in the distance. But I wasn't afraid anymore. She didn't know it yet, but she had just started a fight she couldn't win. The wail of the ambulance siren echoed in my ears as I sat in the back, clutching Lily's hand in both of mine. Her small fingers were cold and sticky with blood, her breaths shallow and uneven as the paramedics worked furiously to clean and bandage her wound. I kept brushing her hair back from her damp forehead, whispering, "Stay with me, baby. Mama's here. You're safe now." But deep down, I wasn't sure who I was trying to comfort more, her or myself. The paramedic glanced at me with a grim expression. "It's a deep gash, likely from the fall. Doesn't look like a bullet wound, but we'll check for fractures." I nodded numbly, my mind spinning. I could still hear the crack of the gunshot in my head, still see Karen's smug face, her finger on the trigger, and hear her voice. "Maybe you should have kept your crippled brat off the lawn." At the hospital, the nurses wheeled Lily away while I followed close behind, feeling powerless for the first time since her birth. My little fighter, the girl who had battled cerebral palsy with more courage than most grown men, now lay pale and trembling because of a neighbor's recklessness. "She's stable," the nurse reassured me as they stitched the deep cut in Lily's knee. "No bullet wound, thank God, but the fall from her chair caused a bad laceration and bruising. She'll need rest." When I was finally allowed to see her, Lily's big brown eyes blinked open. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Mama, did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart," I said fiercely, squeezing her hand. "You didn't do anything wrong. Karen did, and she's going to answer for it." As Lily drifted back into sleep, my phone buzzed. It was Anna, our neighbor. "I recorded everything," she said quickly. "Karen aimed at your dog and fired. She didn't care where Lily was sitting. She even laughed when your girl fell. I'm sending you the video now." When I saw the footage, my hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The gunshot, the wheelchair tipping, Lily's terrified scream, and Karen's cold, amused smirk. This wasn't carelessness. This wasn't an accident. This was malice. I looked down at Lily, her tiny fingers curled around mine, even in sleep. "She'll never hurt you again," I whispered to her and swore to myself. "I'll make sure of it, even if it's the last thing I do." By the next morning, the video of Karen firing her gun had gone viral. It was everywhere on Facebook, Twitter, and even the local news. The headlines scrolling across my phone made my chest tighten. HOA president fires gun near disabled child, smirks as she bleeds. The footage, only 45 seconds long, had been viewed over 1 million times overnight. People were furious, and so was I. Outside the hospital, our quiet neighborhood had turned into a battlefield of signs and voices. Dozens of parents gathered in protest. They held up homemade posters that read "Justice for Lily" and "Karen must go." Some of them I barely knew, but their voices joined together like a single force of outrage. Inside the hospital room, Lily lay propped up on pillows, her stitched knee wrapped in thick bandages. She was pale, but awake now, staring at me with wide, confused eyes. "Mama," she whispered, her voice small. "Why does she hate me? Did I make her mad?" The question sliced through me like a knife. "No, baby," I said, my voice breaking. "You didn't do anything wrong. She's the one who's wrong. And she's not going to get away with this." Outside, Karen seemed to be unraveling under the weight of the backlash. Neighbors surrounded her house chanting, "Step down, Karen! Justice for Lily!" She came out onto her porch, still wearing her silk robe and clutching a coffee cup like the world hadn't just seen her reckless cruelty. "I didn't shoot the girl," she screamed at the crowd, her voice cracking. "It was a warning shot. The dog's the problem. You're all blowing this out of proportion." But nobody was buying it. Parents shouted back, furious and trembling with rage. "She aimed that gun near your daughter's head," Anna had told me on the phone earlier. She laughed after Lily fell. "She's a danger to everyone here." I stared at my sleeping daughter and felt a surge of resolve. Karen had underestimated me. She thought she could bully us into silence, but she didn't realize the kind of mother she was dealing with. I wouldn't just demand justice for Lily. I'd make sure Karen's entire world came crashing down. 3 weeks later, I stood in the courthouse clutching Lily's hand as we entered the courtroom. Her tiny fingers felt warm but fragile in mine. She looked up at me nervously, her lips trembling. "Will she be there?" Lily whispered. "Yes, sweetheart," I said gently, "but she can't hurt you anymore. I promise." At the defense table sat Karen, dressed in an expensive navy blue blazer, her hair styled perfectly as if she were attending an HOA meeting instead of standing trial for endangering a child's life. But her composure was cracking. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat as the jury filed in, and the prosecutor queued up the damning video. The courtroom fell silent as the footage played. Karen raising her revolver, the deafening shot, Lily's terrified scream as her wheelchair tipped, and that smirk, cold, cruel, unforgettable, on Karen's face as my daughter cried out in pain. My client fired a warning shot in frustration. Karen's lawyer began. "This was a tragic misunderstanding, not a crime. There was no intent to harm." But the prosecutor's voice boomed like thunder. "This wasn't frustration. This was reckless endangerment of a disabled child and aggravated assault." When I took the stand, I spoke with all the fury and love burning in my chest. "My daughter's life will never be the same," I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening fall. "Karen didn't just fire a gun. She fired fear into our lives. She mocked my child as she lay bleeding. That's not frustration. That's cruelty." Karen wouldn't meet my eyes. For the first time, I saw something behind her carefully constructed mask of arrogance: fear. It took the jury only 2 hours to deliberate. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty on all counts. The words echoed in the silent courtroom. Karen's face went pale, her jaw slack as the judge slammed his gavel down. "This court sentences you to 15 years in prison for reckless endangerment, aggravated assault, and unlawful discharge of a firearm," the judge said firmly. "You are hereby removed from your HOA position effective immediately." Karen's eyes darted wildly as officers stepped forward to handcuff her. "This isn't fair," she shrieked, her voice cracking. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. That brat shouldn't have been there. But her cries were drowned out by the sound of applause from neighbors sitting in the back row. Parents who once feared her now stood united, their faces lit with relief and victory. Outside, reporters crowded around me and Lily. "Do you have a message for Karen?" one asked, thrusting a microphone toward me. I glanced down at Lily, who sat quietly in her wheelchair, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "My daughter doesn't have to live in fear anymore," I said softly. "That's all the message I need." Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Mama, can we get ice cream?" For the first time in weeks, I laughed, a real unburdened laugh. "Yes, baby," I said, hugging her close. "Let's get ice cream." As we rolled down the courthouse steps, the sun felt warm on our faces. The woman who tried to break us was gone, and in her place, we found peace.